radius. Humerus, okay kadama? Now we discuss the radius. Okay. First radius, side determination. Side determination points. Disc shaped head. See here, this one is a disc shaped. Are you getting round shape? One is a disc shaped. So disc shaped head which faces above. Disc shaped head faces above. Disc shaped head faces above. Okay. Next. Radial tuberosity. See here, this one is a radial tuberosity. Radial tuberosity which faces medially. Radial tuberosity which faces medially. Next, interosseous border. So interosseous border is nothing but medial border. Is nothing but medial border which faces medially. Which faces medially, and its side medial side faces. Okay. Next point. Styloid process. Styloid process faces inferolaterally. Styloid process faces inferolaterally. Okay. Next point. So lower end of the radius, anterior surface is a smooth surface. Lower end of the radius, anterior surface is a smooth surface. Faces anteriorly. Faces anteriorly. Next point. Lower end posterior surface is a rough surface. Lower end posterior surface is a rough surface, and there is a presence of tubercle called as Lister tubercle. Called as Lister tubercle. This one is a Lister tubercle. So Lister tubercle, it also called as dorsal tubercle. Lister tubercle also called as dorsal tubercle, which faces posteriorly. Which faces posteriorly. So these are the side determination points of the radius. Are you getting? So ఇప్పుడు చెప్పండి, ఇది రైటా లెఫ్టా? చూడండి, ఇట్లా ఉంటే కరెక్టా? ఇట్లా ఉంటే కరెక్టా? Very good, correct. This one is the left. So right అనుకోండి, ఇట్లా పెట్టినాం అనుకోండి ఏమవుతుంది? Styloid process present towards the medial side. So అది wrong. So which faces inferolaterally. That is the correct. Okay, are you getting? Then come to the parts of the radius. Consists of 3 parts. So radius consists of 3 parts. Number 1, upper end, lower end, shaft. Upper end, lower end, shaft. So first we discuss the upper end. See here, this part is the upper end, right? Upper end consists of, upper end lo chudandi ee parts unnai, okay na? Upper end consists of head, disc shaped head. So దీన్ని disc shape అన్నాం. And this one, side one, we called as circumference head. So head లో ఏముంది? Circumference head. Head superior surface, head circumference surface. Head, okay, consists of head. Constrictor part is the neck. Second part is the neck, and third part is the radial tuberosity. Radial tuberosity. So first we discuss the head. Okay, So head consists of two surfaces here. Number one is a superior surface and number two is a circumference surface. Okay. So first we discuss the superior surface. So superior surface is a concave surface. ఎట్లా ఉంది concave. See here the concave surface which faces above which faces above which is articulates with the which is articulates with the capitulum which is articulates with the capitulum of the humerus which is articulates with the capitulum of the humerus then forms a joint humero-radial joint forms a joint called as humero-radial joint. Are you getting? Next, come to the circumference head. So circumference head articulates with the radial notch of the ulna. It is a radial notch. See here, the radial notch of the ulna. Radius కోసం ఎక్కడుంది నాచ్ అల్నా మీద ఉంది. ఓకేనా? సో అల్నా మీద ఉన్న నాచ్ దేని గురించి ఉంది? రేడియస్ గురించి. అందుకని దాన్ని ఏమంటున్నాం? రేడియల్ నాచ్ ఆఫ్ ద అల్నా. So this circumference head articulates with the radial notch of the ulna. Radial notch of the ulna then forms a joint called as superior radio-ulnar joint. Forms a joint called as superior radio-ulnar joint. It also called as proximal radio-ulnar joint. Superior radio-ulnar joint is nothing but proximal radio-ulnar joint. Okay. Next, come to the neck. Neck is a constricted part. Neck is a constricted part present in between the radial tuberosity and head. Present in between the radial tuberosity and head. Next, come to the radial tuberosity. In the radial tuberosity, there is an insertion of biceps muscle. There is an insertion of biceps muscle. Bicep means it consists of two heads. So number one is a long head and number two is a short head. So long head is originates from the supraglenoid tubercle. Where it is present? In the scapula. See here, the glenoid cavity. Above the glenoid cavity, there is the presence of one tubercle called as supraglenoid tubercle. So, long head of the biceps is originates from the supraglenoid tubercle. Then, short head is originates from the tip of the coracoid process. Tip of the coracoid process runs downwards, then finally inserted into the radial tuberosity. Radial tuberosity. Once again, I show the picture. Radial tuberosity. Radial tuberosity. Once again. See here, this one is a supraglenoid tubercle, okay, long head, and this one is a short head, runs downwards, then forms a belly. So this belly is a biceps brachii belly, then finally which is inserted into the radial tuberosity. Are you getting? Okay. So this one is a radial tuberosity. Next. So upper end completed, right? Then come to the lower end. Lower end of the radius. See here, this one is the lower end, right? So lower end consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Totally 5 surfaces. Lower end consists of 5 surfaces. Number 1 is the anterior surface. Number 2 is the posterior surface. And number 3 is the medial surface. Number 4 is the lateral surface. Number 5 is the inferior surface. So totally there is a presence of 5 surfaces. So first we discuss the anterior surface. So anterior surface is a smooth surface. Anterior surface is a smooth surface. In the anterior surface, see here, the anterior surface there is a insertion of pronator quadratus. Insertion of pronator quadratus. So pronator quadratus, it is originates from the ulna, okay, then inserted into the radius. So like a box shape, quadrilateral shaped muscle. So what is a quadrilateral shaped muscle example? Pronator quadratus, quadratus femoris. General anatomy lo cheptunnam manam. Okay, అందుకని quadratus అంటే box shape ఉంటుంది. Okay, so this one is inserted into the anterior surface of the radius. Are you getting? Then come to the posterior surface. So posterior surface is the rough surface. Posterior surface is a rough surface. Here there is a presence of sulcuses and tubercle. See here, sulcuses 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the sulcuses. Sulcuses. See here 1, 2, 3, 4 sulcuses. Okay, sulcus is present, and here there is the presence of tubercle. So the tubercle we called as dorsal tubercle. Otherwise it called as Lister tubercle. Okay, dorsal tubercle. Otherwise it called as Lister tubercle. So posterior surface is a rough surface. There is the presence of sulcuses and tubercle. Through the sulcuses there is a passing of the extensor group tendons. Extensor group tendon muscles. Extensor group muscle tendons. Extensor group muscle tendons passes through this grooves. Passes through this grooves. Okay, are you getting? So this is the posterior surface. Then come to the styloid process. So styloid process which is present where? Lateral surface. In the lateral surface, there is a presence of bony projected area. There is a presence of bony projected area called as styloid process. Okay, styloid process. In the styloid process, there is an insertion of brachioradialis muscle. Insertion of brachioradialis muscle. Inserted where? In the styloid process. Are you getting? Next. Then come to the medial surface. In the medial surface, there is a presence of notch. In the medial surface, there is a presence of notch called as, see here, this notch for the ulna. So that's why we called here ulnar notch of the radius. Ulnar notch of the radius. This one is the ulnar notch of the radius. In this ulnar notch of the radius, there is a articulation of the head of the ulna. See here, the head. Head of the ulna is articulates with the ulnar notch of the radius. Ulnar notch of the radius present where? In the inferior end. The inferior end which surface? Which surface? Medial surface. In the medial surface there is the presence of depressed notch. So that notch we called as ulnar notch of the radius. Here there is the articulation of head of the ulna. Then forms a joint called as inferior radio-ulnar joint. Inferior radio-ulnar joint antunnanu. It also called as distal radio-ulnar joint. It also called as distal radio-ulnar joint. Are you getting? Next, come to the inferior surface. So, inferior surface is a completely articular surface. It is a articular surface. Articulates with the carpal bones. Articulates with the carpal bones. Carpal bones lo enti? Carpal bones lo scaphoid. Articulates with the scaphoid and lunate. See here, scaphoid. S means scaphoid. Okay. Then L means lunate. Scaphoid and lunate. That is the inferior surface. Are you getting? 5 surfaces చెప్పండి ఒకసారి. Anterior surface, posterior surface. Very good. So anterior surface ఏమని చెప్పాలి? Smooth surface. Insertion of pronator quadratus. Okay. Posterior surface is the rough surface. There is a presence of sulcuses and tubercle. So that tubercle we called as distal tubercle, otherwise dorsal tubercle. Okay. Then in the lateral surface there is a presence of bony projection area called as styloid process. In the medial surface there is a presence of the notch. That notch for ulnar notch of the radius. It is articulates with the head of the ulna. Forms a joint called as inferior radio-ulnar joint. Very good. Okay. Then come to the shaft. Okay. So shaft consists of 3 borders and 3 surfaces. Shaft consists of 3 borders and 3 surfaces. So always you remember. So sharpest border is a medial border. Sharpest border enti? Medial border. Ingo sharp border ide kada. So this border we called as medial border. Otherwise it called as interosseous border. Medial border inkevanachchu? Interosseous border. Medial border also called as interosseous border. Then see here is the surface. This is the surface and this one is the surface. So medial border, anterior border, posterior border. Any borders right? 3 borders. Anterior border. Anterior border ante chudandi. This one is the anterior border. Okay, and this one is a medial border, and this one is a posterior border. So consists of 3 borders. So MM borders: anterior border, posterior border, medial border. Then presence of 3 surfaces. See here, anterior surface number 1, anterior surface, and number 2, posterior surface. And number 3, lateral surface. So consists of 3 surfaces. So even రాయాలి anterior surface. చూడండి flexor compartment లో కనిపించేది anterior surface. Extensor compartment లో కనిపించేది posterior surface. Lateral side ఉండేది lateral surface. Okay. So anterior surface, posterior surface, lateral surface. Are you getting? So surfaces and borders. Then come to the muzzle attachment. Come to the muzzle attachment. See here, anterior surface is anterior. This one is anterior surface, right? The anterior surface, there is the origination of flexor pollicis longus. Origination of flexor pollicis longus. Pollicis means thumb finger. Pollicis అంటే అర్థం ఏంటి? థంబ్ ఫింగర్ అంటే మజిల్ ఇక్కడ స్టార్ట్ అయింది, థంబ్ ఫింగర్ వరకు రన్ అవుతుంది అని అర్థం. ఓకే, ఎక్స్టెన్సార్ pollicis longus originates from where? Anterior surface of the shaft of the radius. Okay, then it runs downwards. It runs downwards and a muscle flexor pollicis longus. Okay, then origin insertion రాసుకోండి. It is originates from the anterior surface of the shaft of the radius, then runs downwards, passes beneath the flexor retinaculum, see here, this one is a flexor retinaculum, passes beneath the flexor అంటే దీని కింద నుంచి రన్ అవుతుంది. ఓకేనా? సో passes beneath the flexor retinaculum. ఏ మజిల్ చెప్పుకున్నాం ఇప్పుడు మనం? flexor pollicis longus అన్నాం కదా. ఇక చూడండి ఇక్కడ కనిపిస్తుంది ఆ టెండన్. సో దిస్ టెండన్ ఇస్ ద flexor pollicis longus. సో passes beneath the flexor retinaculum, then enters into the palm. It runs towards the thumb finger side. So thumb finger side run outundi. Okay na? It runs towards the thumb finger side. Finally, which is inserted into the see here. This one is the base of the distal phalanx base of the thumb finger. So it is inserted into the distal phalanx. Distal అంటే ఏంటి? సో proximal అంటే పైది, distal అంటే కిందిది. సో ఇక్కడ 1 2 3 ఉన్నాయి, 3 bones. ఏంటి? proximal phalanx, intermediate phalanx, distal phalanx. ఇక్కడ 2 ఉన్నాయి, proximal phalanx, distal phalanx. So it runs downwards, passes beneath the flexor retinaculum, runs towards the thumb finger side, then finally inserted into the base of the distal phalanx base of the thumb finger. Okay, distal phalanx base of the thumb finger. Are you getting? Next. Okay, then come to the lateral surface. So anterior surface లో 2 muscles రాయాలి. Number 1 is the flexor pollicis longus. ఇంకోటి ఏంటి? ఇన్సర్షన్ ఆఫ్ ద pronator quadratus. ఆల్రెడీ లోయర్ బార్డర్ లో చెప్పుకున్నాం, లోయర్ anterior surface of the inferior end లో చెప్పేసుకున్నాం కాబట్టి అవసరం లేదు ఇక్కడ. Okay, then come to the lateral surface. See here, this one is the lateral surface. In the lateral surface there is a 2 muscles inserted here. 2 muscles. Number 1 is a supinator muscle. Number 1 is a supinator muscle and number 2 pronator teres muscle. Pronator teres. One second, I show you pronator teres. See here, ఇక్కడ నెంబర్ 1 అని రాస్తుంది కదా. Okay, are you getting? Number 1. So one is humeral head. This one is a humeral head, and this one is a ulnar head. And this now 1 and 2 heads. One is humeral head, another one is ulnar head. Then runs downwards, finally inserted into the lateral surface of the shaft of the radius. Lateral surface of the shaft of the radius. Are you getting? Yes. అది ఇక్కడ. ఓకే, సో చూడండి ఇక్కడ ప్రొనేటా టీరీస్ అల్నార్ హెడ్ అని ఉంది. ప్రొనేటా టీరీస్ అల్నార్ హెడ్. The radius, and this one is the ulnar. Okay, so this one is the lateral surface. This surface. Consider one head is originates from the medial supracondylar ridge. అంతే కదా, medial supracondylar ridge నుంచి వస్తుందండి humeral head of the pronata teres. ఏంటిది? humeral head of pronata teres originates from the medial supracondylar ridge of the humerus. Then next one is the ulnar head, originates from the ulna. Are you getting? Then finally it is inserted into the lateral surface. Okay, yes. So this muscle we called as pronata teres muscle. Are you getting? Pronata teres, right? So in the lateral surface there is a 2 muscles insertion. Number 1 is the supinator muscle, and number 2 is the pronata teres muscle. Then in the anterior border, see here, this one is the anterior border. In the anterior border, here is the oblique line, anterior border. Are you getting? So this one is the anterior border, right? So in the oblique line, there is the origination of flexor digitorum superficialis muscle. Flexor digitorum superficialis. Flexor digitorum superficialis muscle. So actually this flexor digitorum superficialis muscle, see here ఇక్కడ కూడా ఉంది చూడండి, flexor digitorum superficialis. సో మీడియల్ హెడ్ లో కూడా ఉంటుంది, అంటే మీడియల్ ఎపికాండైల్ లో కూడా ఉంటుంది. చూడండి ఇక్కడ, see here, flexor digitorum superficialis originates from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. Number 1, అక్కడ ఒక పాయింట్ తీసుకోవాలి. And number 2, some fibers originates from the ulna, and some fibers originates from the anterior border, otherwise called as oblique line. అంటే ఇక్కడ నుంచి ఫైబర్స్ వస్తున్నాయి. ఓకే, ఫైబర్స్ ఇట్లా వస్తున్నాయి, తర్వాత ఇక్కడ నుంచి ఇక్కడ వరకు గ్యాప్ ఉంది, మళ్ళీ ఫైబర్స్ ఇట్లా వస్తున్నాయి. Are you getting? Yes. Then some fibers originates like this. So this muscle we call as flexor digitorum superficialis. So this write down, flexor digitorum superficialis origin. Flexor digitorum superficialis origin. Flexor digitorum superficialis originates from the first point, right? Originates from the medial epicondyle of the humerus. First point, medial epicondyle of the humerus. Number 2, some fibers originates from the upper end of the ulna near the ulnar tuberosity. Next, some fibers, third point, some fibers originates from the oblique line of the radius. Oblique line of the radius nothing but anterior border of the radius. Okay, it runs downwards, passes beneath the flexor retinaculum. Just above the flexor retinaculum. Right, go back. Just above the flexor retinaculum, this muscle gives the four tendons. So that four tendons also passes beneath the flexor retinaculum. Enters into the palmar surface of the hand. Palmar surface of the hand. Each tendon, any tendons? Four tendons. Each tendon splits into two. అంటే 2 గా స్ప్లిట్ అయింది and reunite, మళ్ళీ యూనైట్ అవుతున్నాయి. Splits into 2 and reunite, again split, finally inserted into the medial and lateral sides of the intermediate phalanx of the second, third, fourth and fifth fingers. అర్థమైంది ఏమన్నా? So see here, so this is the muscle, so origin point. Okay, finally it gives a 1, 2, 3, 4 tendons. So this 4 tendons passes beneath the flexor retinaculum. This one is the flexor retinaculum. Okay, so passes beneath the flexor retinaculum. Each one runs towards the finger side. So 1, 2, 3, 4 tendons. Each tendon splits into 2. అంటే ఇట్లా చూడండి. Each tendon splits into 2, then reunite, again split. అంటే each tendon splits into 2, reunite, again split, finally inserted into the intermediate phalanx of the second, third, fourth, fifth fingers. Are you getting? అర్థమవుతుందా? చూడండి, the tendon, are you getting? Tendon splits into 2, reunite, okay, again split, then finally inserted into the medial and lateral aspect of the intermediate phalanx. Are you getting? Same. Tendon splits into two, reunite, again inserted into the medial and lateral sides of the intermediate phalanx. Are you getting? So same. Tendon splits into two, reunite, again split, finally inserted into the intermediate phalanx of the second. Which one is the second finger? This one is the second. First finger, second, third, fourth, and fifth finger. Are you getting? గుర్తుంటుందా? ఏం మజిల్ ఇది? మజిల్ పేరు చెప్పండి. అది అట్లుంటది. Flexor digitorum superficialis. Are you getting? Very good. And see here, then come to the posterior surface. Okay, posterior surface. In the posterior surface, there is a two muscles originates from here. Two muscles originates from the posterior surface of the radius. Number one is the abductor pollicis longus. Number one is the abductor pollicis longus. And number one, abductor pollicis longus. And number two, extensor pollicis brevis. Number two, extensor pollicis brevis. Okay. So, abductor pollicis longus originates from the two bones. It originates from the two bones. Posterior surface of the ulna and also originates from the posterior surface of the radius. Posterior surface of the ulna and ikkada nunchi original. Posterior surface of the ulna and posterior surface of the radius. Two nunchi originate. Okay. Then runs downwards, passes beneath the extensor retinaculum, passes beneath the extensor retinaculum, passes beneath the extensor retinaculum, finally inserted into the చూడండి ఇదేంటిది కార్పల్స్. ఇది ఫస్ట్ మెటాకార్పల్. ఫస్ట్ మెటాకార్పల్ లో which side it is? Radial side means lateral side. This one is the medial side. Finally inserted into the lateral side of the base of the first metacarpal bone. That is the abductor pollicis longus. Okay. Next muscle. What is the next muscle? Extensor pollicis brevis. Write down. Extensor pollicis brevis. Origin. Extensor pollicis brevis originates from the posterior surface of the radius. Posterior surface of the radius. It runs downwards finally inserted, runs downwards, passes beneath the extensor retinaculum, passes beneath the extensor retinaculum. Okay, finally inserted into the dorsal surface of the proximal phalanx of the thumb finger, Are you getting? Okay, so this one is the extensor pollicis brevis, right? So this one is a radius. Okay, take a 5 minutes break, then we start the ulna.